You don't want the beach house or you don't want the travel. You want the adventure. You want the learning. You want the connection. And that's what I do with people is we define what are these core motivations. And then we build what I call your drumbeat, where you're actually looking for adventure and creativity and connection in everyday life.
Hey, it's Rocky. Welcome to Richer Soul. Today's guest is Dave, who will share how to be intentional with your life. Imagine it's 12 months from now, and you've achieved your major life goals. How does it feel to be in the best shape of your life? To wake up energized, excited about the day, to have great relationships and friends who support you and propel you forward. How does it feel to have an excess of money, to be able to make the choices you want, to be fearless and open to trying new adventures? Imagine being connected to the universe and it providing everything you desire. It's possible over time, and your past does not dictate your future. The only thing holding you back from this vision is you. It's time to take control of our thoughts and use them to our advantage. Welcome to Richer Soul, where we achieve our dreams and bring balance to health, wealth, relationships, time, and spirituality. If you have not had a chance to listen to episodes 1 through 9, I encourage you to go back and listen to the framework behind Richer Soul and how to create the life of your dreams. You can also find all the show notes for this episode at richersoul.com. Life is a lot easier when you know where you're going. You can be focused and take steps to get you there. But when you're not sure, you tend to go in circles, get distracted, waste a ton of energy, or end up doing things that don't bring you joy because you weren't intentional, you weren't clear. This happens with work, it happens with our activities, it happens with so many parts of our life. Today, our topic is how to be more intentional in picking that course and finding your way towards it. Dave helps individuals create a life of true fulfillment, happiness, and success by focusing on what matters most. Known as the Focus Turbine, Dave believes that what you focus on becomes your reality. He empowers people to live authentically and intentionally, guiding them to align their daily actions with their deeper motivations and desires. By leveraging the brain's natural focus systems, Dave combines powerful insights with actionable strategies to help his clients design the life they truly want and to actually live it and get it. Let's meet Dave and see how he does it. Welcome to Richer Soul, Dave. It's great to have you join us today.
Thanks for having me.
And I am excited for our conversation. We always like to start at the beginning. What was it like when you were growing up, and how much did your family and school teach you about money?
So officially teach me about money, probably not at all. But I learned a lot from my dad and my mom on how to live authentically and how, and it's really shaped my relationship with money because my dad never really cared about money. We lived a modest life, but we always had enough. We never, had trouble with a roof over our heads or food or, going to college or anything, but we weren't wealthy. But my dad, very early when I was very young, probably below the age of 2, left his corporate job, for lack of a better term. He was a draftsman for a machine company and followed his dream to be a craftsman and to get into woodworking. And so I think that really shaped my relationship with money and how doing what you love to do is more important than the paycheck that you get.
It is, but you still got to make the paycheck.
Oh, and trust me, it has messed me up for the rest of my life. I'm not saying. I will admit, I work with people on helping them, succeed. And, I've been a business consultant and everything like that. And when you really put fulfillment and happiness first, you can tend to kind of tank yourself at times, and trying to balance that scale between fulfillment and happiness has been a struggle. And it wasn't until recently when I really started thinking about my growing up, and and what I learned from my family on getting by, and not chasing money, as they would say. But it really, when you're trying to be an entrepreneur and make money, it can be a problem.
It can. So, how have you figured out that path for you?
Well, I figured it out for me, and I figured it out for my clients. So first of all, like you said, you can't exist if you don't make money. And so really figuring out how to balance the two, and to be putting emphasis at times on one side of the scale. If you think of scales of justice, putting emphasis on one side of the scale or the other, depending upon what's important to you. And there's never 100%, we talk about work-life balance and balance, and there's never 100% balance. It's more of a counterbalance. It's making sure that you're paying attention to both sides. And there was many times in my life where I really did, put way too much emphasis on the fulfillment side of things. And, to the detriment of growth and achievement and stuff in my business. And so I've learned many lessons on it. And so in trying to figure out how to balance that in myself, I've also then crafted basically the program that I do with people now.
I struggle with the word balance because, as you talk about, it's impossible to be balanced.
Right.
Right. And so we talk about harmony, and I guess the concept of harmony is there's times to make money, there's times to rest, there's times to have fun, and you have to enjoy them all. And sometimes you might sprint, but you better have a defined endpoint, because you can't sprint forever, right? You can't sprint through a marathon. It doesn't work. You fall over. So you got to figure that out.
And I don't like the word balance either. I call it a blend. You have to have a blend between fulfillment and achievement, and you have to know what that is. I use the scale because it's a really good visual, because like you said, if you put too much emphasis on one side, the scale's going to flip over. And so you can't forget one side or the other. There might be times where you're only putting little tiny weights on one side of the scale just to keep it from flipping over, because you need to focus on growth in your business, or, earning period, or whatever the achievement is, or, you're going for certain achievements in your life. But then there's other times in your life where, your parents are sick, or you have a sick child, or you yourself are sick, that you need to put weight on the other side. And it's really making sure that you're still counterbalancing at any given time, and finding the right blend in any given moment that is helping you to make sure that you're keeping yourself from flipping.
And I agree with that. So you actually spent some of your early career working in the accounting field with the Big Four, but you're more of a creative. So, how did that come about?
So I only spent 1 year in the accounting world, but I spent many years in the financial services world. So I worked for big banks and a lot of that kind of stuff. I also worked in higher ed. So I bopped around from internal marketing departments. So I was never actually an accountant. I went to a business school. I know enough about accounting, but definitely you do not want me to be your financial advisor or your accountant or any kind of financial stuff. I always say, I barely got a C in accounting and finance. So I'm not your always, whenever I'm working with clients, I'm like, we're going to bring people who know this kind of stuff in. But I know that world because I've often, when I was in the corporate world, I worked with accountants. I worked with people in the banking world, that kind of stuff. And then when I went out on my own, when you're an entrepreneur, especially when you're, advising solo entrepreneurs and small businesses, you have to have a understanding of, I see profit first behind you, things like profit first thinking and all of that kind of stuff. So I know enough to be dangerous, but I definitely do not, you don't want me as your financial person.
Because I come from a financial background and it's so natural to me, I just assumed everybody understood finances. And I've come to realize that most people struggle with it. Even if they went through a college program, for whatever reason, and I don't know why, for a lot of people, understanding money and how to handle it just seems to be a struggle.
Well, I think it goes back to your first question, right? We weren't really taught a lot about it.
No, but I think there's also conflicting priorities
Mm-hmm.
that you have to work through. And then there's all the stories you were told about money. Some of them good, many of them bad. And depending on how you internalize those stories about money determines how you behave with money. That's all.
Yep. So I was burned out. I talk now about working with people who are in that world and burned out. And I had what I call the Talking Heads moment. So if you think of this song from the Talking Heads, Once in a Lifetime, he wakes up one morning and says, "How do I get here? How did I get here?" And I had that moment. I had almost missed my first Father's Day. I was stuck in Atlanta. Like, I had slept at my desk. I had, missed trains out of Boston. I was pretty burned out. It was actually the year 9/11 happened. That was in September. My best friend died at 29 in February, and my grandmother died a week later. And I said, life's too short to, not spend time with your kids and your family and stuff. And so it started me on a path of, okay, entrepreneurship is going to be the way to go. And so I guess the term now is rage quit, where you just kind of say, I've got one client and I'm walking out the door. So I had some old friends from the banking world that were starting a consulting firm, and I was like, all right, I got a client, I'm out. And do not recommend that. I now do and tell no people, do not do that. There must be a transition plan and an idea. But yeah, and so 23 almost years ago now, I walked out the door. I went into my boss's office and I said, I'm done. And she said, for the day. And I said, nope, forever. And I didn't look back, and made a lot of up and down. I know why you don't like the word balance. I tried to balance, but yet I didn't. And it was, earn. And then, oh, shoot, I now I've created a treadmill that exactly worse than what I had in corporate. I still don't see my kids and my family. And so I said, all right, now I'm going to be focused on the family, right? This is going to be, and then you don't earn any money, and then you're like, oh crap. And I was lucky. I had a wife who had a very good, stable job that could always pay the mortgage. And so, we were able to, she actually crafted her career so that we created that blend of fulfillment and achievement in order to have the life that we wanted with our kids. And so I kind of by accident lived what I now teach people, but it was a 20-year up and down battle. And that's why I say to people, I'll teach you in a year what took me 22 years to learn.
And so let's talk about that. What is it outcome that you provide for people? Like, when they come to you, what is it that they're looking for, and what do they get at the end of the year?
So when I work with people, really what it comes down to is that they're having that feeling of there's more to life than what I'm currently living, and I'm not really sure what I want to do about it. And so it could be somebody in corporate America. It could be, and they're burnt out. It could be an entrepreneur that's running on that treadmill that are burned out. It could be somebody that's highly successful and missed out on a lot of their family time. And so really what I offer them is a path to figure out what is that blend between fulfillment and achievement, so that you're living more of the life that you thought you were going to live. We often check a lot of boxes that society told us to check, and then we look back and go, is this really what I wanted? And I find a lot of people aren't living that life. And so it's coaching them through the process of really thinking about what's authenticity to me, what's a life for me, what are my motivations, what makes me happy, what makes me feel fulfilled, how can I start incorporating more of that into my life? And that could mean leaving corporate America and starting a business. It could be transitioning into a different career, transitioning into a different company that gives you more flexibility, whatever the case may be. But really, at the end of the year working with me, they get closer to the life they want to live, and hopefully a plan to continue and get there. Most people have made some sort of move by the end of a 12-month period with me, and some make it even sooner, like 3 or 4 months.
When you look at the people who come to you, do they tend to be at one end of the spectrum or the other? Or is there particular side of the spectrum that most of them tend to be on?
They tend to be on the success achievement side. Their scale is weighted on that side. So they've risen up in corporate America and they've hit a ceiling maybe. So that's why they're now frustrated. Maybe usually they're, somewhere between 40 and 55. So they're like, do I really want to continue here? Because I've hit the ceiling at this business and now I'm going to have to jump ship or maybe start my own thing. What am I going to do? So there's this point where they're changing. But usually on that side, they've got some level of success. In the entrepreneurial world, they've got some entrepreneurial success. They're doing well. And they're lacking in fulfillment. They've missed their kids' soccer games. They don't see their friends as much as they used to. Their hobby, their guitars and their fishing poles are sitting in the closet, not getting used. All of that kind of stuff. Or it's the other side of it is that they're a solo entrepreneur that has left, and I'm going to be my own boss. And they've either jumped on that treadmill and they're like, oh, like I did, and oh crap, I don't have any of that free time and freedom and things that I thought I was going to have. Or they really focused on that and now they're struggling because they didn't put enough into the success and achievement side of it. And so they're draining their bank accounts. They're getting by, but they're not at a level that they need to be for long-term sustainability.
Does the world make it sound easy to make that transition?
Oh, yeah.
I find most people think that they can do things in 2 or 3 months that take 2 or 3 years.
Well, I always say to people, it's like remodeling your house. It's always going to take longer and take way more effort and way more money than you thought it was going to. And so, yeah, most people think, oh, I know how to. And I don't remember it was when you and I were in New York at the Speakeasy, but somebody said, you're not a CEO, you're a chief everything officer. When you leave your corporate job and you start your own business, you have to do everything. And, that's most people don't realize that. They think, oh, well, I know how to be a biotech quality assurance, so I can just go into consulting in that. Well, great, but you also have to be a salesperson, an accounting person, and this person, and that person, or you have to have the money to hire those people, and now you're managing those people, and it's not the same as corporate America. So, and a lot of people who do that are not entrepreneurs at heart. A lot of people that we know that are entrepreneurs, that are serial entrepreneurs and done really well, they're a different breed of person than the person that spent 5, 10, 15, 20 years in corporate America.
And I think that's the part people don't realize. When you run your own business, you are a salesperson, whether you like it or not. Yep. You have to go out and sell for yourself. And then, yes, there are all the other parts of the business that everybody hates to do. And I know for a fact, I even hate doing bookkeeping. But I realize the importance and I get it done.
Yep.
There are a lot of parts of what I do now that I have outsourced to someone else to do. But you have to build systems, processes. You have to decide, what do you like? What can you let go of? And then learn that it's not going to be perfect, and kind of work with that, which really comes back to the question of, what do we really want? And I find most people can't answer that question. And a lot of people are scared to answer that question. I don't know why.
Well, the answer I always get when I ask people that is more money, because they think more money will solve all the problems.
It doesn't.
While money is important, it's a vital resource. It doesn't, to go back to that scale metaphor I have, the more money you pile over there doesn't give you more fulfillment. Like, you have to figure out how to use the money to free up your time, to take bookkeeping off your plate, to hire a salesman, whatever you need in order to make sure that you're now carving out that time. And that's a lot of what I do with people is to okay, so what does that look like? And not what society told you wanted, not what your mother told you wanted. What do you want? So that, because you're now waking up in that moment where you're going, this is not the life I wanted. So what was the life you wanted? And how can we start moving more towards that life?
How easy is it for people to figure out what they really want?
I start with what's your dreams. I start with literally like what has always been a dream of yours. And it could be travel, it could be writing a screenplay, it could be, and ironically, it really doesn't matter what it is because my process does in the first session is to really keep asking you a series of why like questions to get to the deeper motivations in you. And it comes down to the common ones are creativity, impact, connection. That's the underlying. I always say your dreams are your signposts to what you really want in life and what the motivations that are deep inside of you, and the ones that are beyond the innate things that are in us, scarcity, fight or flight, those things that are in our DNA, or the learned ones, that we learn through our education system or from our parents or whatever, or kind of the societal ones that say, you want to have a mansion and, and all of these things, because not everybody does actually. And so if you really understand your motivations, you can start seeing opportunities that might not be as grandiose as the big dream, but they can start to give you that feeling every single day.
Do people really know what they want? Because like people say, oh, I want to travel. But if they've never traveled, they might come to realize, okay, this is true for me. Traveling sucks.
Yeah.
That's in my world, that's my truth. Now, for other people, they've got a very different outlook, and that's okay. But the glamour of travel allures you.
Right.
But then the reality of travel goes, oof, like people say, I want to write a screenplay, I think you mentioned.
Yeah.
Okay. But do you know what it takes to write a screenplay? And do you actually enjoy doing that? Like I think it's more the allure of something than the actual daily grind of doing it. Because all those things, traveling to me is grind.
So did travel at one point? Was that something you thought you wanted?
Yeah. And
Why?
what we learned though, was that we had a limit. And our limit was at about 17 or 18 days. It was like, it's time to go home.
Yeah.
It becomes too much of, what are we going to do? What are we eating? Where are we going? And it took the fun or the excitement of travel and it turned it into a bigger job. And
so why did you like travel? Why did you want to travel?
I don't know. We want to see the world and do glamorous things, and you see all these things, and they look exotic. But then when you get there, it's funny because, like, I go to the beach and I walk on the beach in the morning, and I see all these big, beautiful houses, and I look at them, and you know what I see in them? Nobody sitting outside enjoying their beach house. They're all either inside or gone.
Yeah.
And it's just funny. It's like we think we want something, but the reality is we don't necessarily want it.
Well, you don't want the beach house or you don't want the travel. You want the adventure. You want the learning. You want the connection. And that's what I do with people is we define what are these core motivations. And then we build what I call your drumbeat, where you're actually looking for adventure and creativity and connection in everyday life. So you mentioned walking the beach, communing with nature. Like some people might say, I want to travel. I want to hike Mount Everest. I want to do this. But walking on the beach can give you that little sense of it every single day. So that's what I do with people is helping you to see what kind of life am I trying to have? And it isn't necessarily the beach house, the Bentley, the travel around the world, all those things that we think we want. It's the motivations behind those that then allow us to look and see what do we want to, how can we build that into our day-to-day life?
I have no desire to climb Everest either. It's cold and it's hard. Exactly. People die. Like, no, thank you. That's not.
But I've got people that have that kind of adventurous mentality. And so I'm like, well, why do you want Everett? Well, because I want adventure. I want to challenge myself. Challenge is another word that comes up a lot. I want to challenge myself. Okay. But you can challenge yourself. You could run a triathlon. You could sit outside in the cold for until you almost freeze. Like there's lots of ways to take that challenge, to challenge yourself.
This episode of Richer Soul is sponsored by the Profit Answer Man podcast. If you're a business owner who wants to scale and grow, increase profits, or want to have strategic conversations around your financials, then check out the podcast. You'll learn how to work less, increase cash flow, increase profits, and build reserves to help you weather storms. It's built on the Profit First methodology of pay yourself first. The Profit Answer Man podcast is a must listen to for every small business owner and anyone who wants to help them survive and thrive. Check it out on your favorite listening platform. Is the challenge a dopamine hit? Like, is that, because there was a book I read, I think it might have been like Becoming Superhuman or Superman or something like that. And it was about these people who have this desire to do these crazy things, right? And it's because they're looking for that high, which comes back to the same thing. Chasing the high, there's no way you're going to find harmony or balance or any of those words because you're always chasing, it seems to me.
Well, and I see a lot of entrepreneurs, especially the true entrepreneur, they're always chasing the next deal. They're always chasing the next big thing. And that's why a lot of people end up feeling unfulfilled, because they're not really sure why they're chasing these things. I think if you, at the core, you're an adventurous person, it's not dopamine anymore. It's something that's innately in you. But I think a lot of other people are just chasing, you're just chasing dopamine.
I think it's because they may not know what else to do. I did deals. I made money. It was fun. So I'm going to do another deal. It's more, better, same, more, bigger, same. Is that what it is? And societally, that's kind of what we're taught. So we start chasing things and we continue to do them because we don't know what else to do.
Yep. And that's really what I help people do is, what's another way to fulfill that and stop chasing that one? Because, we get in this, we're taught that you learn, earn, and then enjoy, right? So there's a period in your life where it's all about gaining your skills, gaining your degrees, gaining your knowledge. Then there's this big earning period of time where, if you're lucky, you get a couple weeks vacation and then you get the cash out, retirement, your company goes public, it gets bought by Google, whatever the big cash out is. And now you get to sit by the pool or golf, and I know somebody who sold their company recently, and he sat by the pool for like 2 weeks. And then he immediately went and started another business because that's all he knew. He's like, yep, that's all I know. And I'm going to do it again, and it's like, but what else could you do? How do you utilize it? And that's why really digging deep and finding out what some of those motivators are and trying it in everyday life, trying things that fulfill those motivators. So, is adventure really a core motivator, or is it just a dopamine hit? And, I've had some people that over the course of 3 or 4 months of working with them, those things that we put in their drumbeat aren't really resonating with them anymore. And we change them.
Do you see that a lot? That what people think they want after trying it out and spending time start to realize that's not it?
That, or there's a deeper version of it. So we start somewhere, we just changed one with one of my clients this morning. He changed it to impact, because what he was realizing is that impact was far more important than creativity and some of the other things that he had. And so, but it took a while for him to really trying to build more creativity, more stuff. And then he's like, no, I think it's actually, I actually said it to him. I'm like, listen to what you're saying right now. Impact is one of your true motivators. Let's put that in there for a little while and see how that feels. And over time, we're going to change and morph. But if we kind of know where we're trying to head, then we can set our trajectory on a daily basis, our actions every single day to try and go after that. But if you don't know what you're trying to get to, you don't know whether you take a left or a right out of your driveway.
You can't steer until you move.
Hey.
And so you got to get moving, even if you're going the wrong direction.
Yep. But if you'll go around in circles, if you don't know, if you're not trying to head towards something, that's because there is a study that said that people, and now the Mythbusters actually did it. They blindfolded people. Humans will go around in circles if it's like this innate thing in us. We actually end up just keep going around in circles if we are blindfolded and don't know where we're going.
Interesting. Yeah, I have heard that, especially when people are lost in the woods, which is why they're always usually pretty close to reality, but they can't see that they're that close, and so they miss it. So when you work with people, what's kind of the first step? Like, how do we begin this process?
What's your dream?
Do people, everyone's dream is to win the lottery, right? Like,
I ruled that one out. You don't, it cannot have anything to do with money. And it doesn't matter. I had a guy who wanted this certain sports car, and we dug, and we ended up finding out that having the sports car represented him making his parents proud.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't the sports car. He doesn't need the sports car. He was named 20 or 40 under 40 or whatever. Like, his parents are already proud of him. But he was fixated on the sports car because it was a tangible item, because his parents were immigrants. They'd come to this country. They had made all kinds of sacrifices. He early in his life worked in the same factory as his dad, didn't really seem like he was getting along, further, the whole American dream, better than your parents thing. And so the sports car became this fixation of making it. But that wasn't what it was all about. It was really about honoring his parents' sacrifice and making them proud that he had made it in life.
Have you ever found somewhat the opposite of that, in the sense of, let's take that same scenario, but the parents have never expressed that sentiment towards their child. And so the child is always looking for the blessing that never comes. Mm-hmm. And so then things get way out of balance.
Oh, yeah. And to be honest with you, he then had the discussion with his parents and found out that they were extremely proud of him. But hey, they had never said it, which is why he was still fixating on the sports car. And the funny part about it is, if he got the sports car, his parents might not have been proud of him because he had the sports car. Like there was so many other things he'd done that, because of what you were just saying, he didn't know. But he thought, once I get the sports car, mom and dad will finally, or the big house, and we all have them, right? We think if we have this, everybody's going to then be proud of us. But in the end, it was just a tangible trophy that represented so many other things. And he never really needs to get the sports car to make all those things happen.
So how do we eliminate all this noise that we have, so to speak, to say, I don't need the sports car. I don't need to travel the world in first class and see this and do that and everything else?
To really start understanding what truly matters to you. My favorite question is why. And then when you get that answer, we ask why again. I mean, I don't just say why, because then you end up sounding like a 3-year-old, but a series of why type questions. And there's a study that says you have to ask it 6 times.
And I've heard that. So what do you say besides why?
Oh, well, why is that important to you? How come that has always been something that was a foremost thought in your life. You play off of how they answer the last why question, and I've got a series of ways I can say it, but more importantly, it's just piggybacking on, well, why was that the answer to the last why?
And at the end of that journey is really understanding the underlying programming that occurred somewhere in life, huh?
Mm-hmm. Well, you start figuring out the motivators. So asking those questions. I'm always like, oh, Rocky said adventure, or it sounded like Rocky said adventure. Well, it sounded like Rocky said connection. It sounded like learning. Like I write down words that represent what you say. And then we take that long list and we figure out which ones are truly yours and which ones are innate, of fear, those kinds of, biological DNA based stuff. Which ones were learned, you were taught by your schooling, your profession, your whatever. Which ones of them were societal, the whole, you want the big mansion on the beach, like you mentioned. And then which ones are truly yours. And once we figure out what we think are truly yours, then we can pick which ones resonate, because there's still probably 6 or 7 of them. We pick the 3 that resonate the most with you, and you try them on for a little while, and you try thinking about, how do I incorporate those into my day-to-day life?
So how do we deal with the money side of this, right? Because at the end of the day, we do have to have that part too.
So what I've developed is when I originally started doing this, it was all the fulfillment side, because I was working with you asked who I worked with. And I was working with a lot of people who had tangible achievements and tangible success and money, and they didn't have any fulfillment. They had missed out on life. And so I built this, what I call the drum beat. So it's a mantra that incorporates those motivation words we just talked about. And you literally read it every day, and you pick 2 actions. One is a little representation. It's a guilty pleasure. What brings you joy that day? And then what's another thing you can be doing to incorporate more of this fulfillment, these things that are guiding you into your daily life? What I found with that is that can lead you down to putting too much on one scale. And so I realized that your drum beat actually has 2 rhythms. You have a fulfillment rhythm and a success rhythm. And so we create another mantra that is your success side, your achievement side, and you have to think about that. So what is your big long-term thing you're heading toward, that destination we talked about? And then what is your objective this week? What is that a component of that you're focusing on? Am I focusing on getting funding for my new company? Am I focusing on building out my programming? Am I focused on getting sales? What's your main objective for this week? And it will roll over sometimes week to week. And then from there, same thing. You ask a question of, what is that baby step micro action that leads to that objective that'll lead towards your greater thing? And then working with somebody like you to make sure that they understand what money they need, because they can't do that with me.
So once people get going, they're a few months in, what are the roadblocks that they hit?
The biggest roadblock is they don't do it.
Oh, gee, there's a concept.
The biggest successes are the people that actually read the mantra every day, to understand what their big objectives are, and to pick actions. Because like you said, if you're not moving, you can't get anywhere. So the people that don't take actions, that's the biggest roadblock, is they are not following the program. Beyond that, then it's, imposter syndromes, fear, like all of those other motivators start creeping back in, and you start worrying about all of those other things and not following what's truly authentic to you, what you need to have the achievements you want, what you need to have the happiness, the joy, the fulfillment in your life. And you start listening to everybody outside of you, especially if you're married or, you've got a business partner or whatever, there is a give and take. So I'm not saying that you're like completely selfish and like, it's just about me, but you have to have a level of self-motivation where you're trying to fulfill what's going to get you what you want in life.
Yeah, I've always, struggle is not the right word. I don't know the right word. I'm just amazed at the amount of people who don't take action.
Yep.
It just blows my mind. how few people will just show up and take one teeny step every day consistently. And yet, time and time again, I'm just amazed that it doesn't happen.
Success comes from taking action. Some of it's going to work, some of it's not. But the law of averages is if you keep taking action, something is going to happen, and and I think it's also why so many people get caught up in all of these like follow the bouncing ball of 30 days to success kind of, guru stuff out there, because they're looking for somebody to tell them exactly how to do it.
But then you're not doing what you want. You're doing what somebody else said.
Yeah. And that's why I designed my program the way I did, because I wanted it to be you. It's not a group. It's not a group thing. It's not a Dave's prescription for success. It's not a Dave's prescription for fulfillment. My fulfillment and your fulfillment are two completely different things. I met a guy, oh God, almost a year ago now in Dallas. I was in Dallas on a business trip. And I was sitting having lunch, and this gentleman came in, sat next to me, because I sat at the bar because I was by myself, and he sat next to me at the bar, and he disheveled, hadn't showered, backpack, hippie, hobo, whatever you want to call him. And we got talking, and I realized that he was the most successful person I ever met. And most people look at him and go, he's almost homeless, right? He stands outside of, and does odd jobs for money. He takes a job for a little while and then moves on. He's a traditional hobo, kind of person seeing the world. But he was successful because he knew what he wanted in life. And he had crafted his life and his earning stream and everything around giving him that. He saw museums. He ate the kinds of foods he wanted to eat. So if he wanted something, he went and earned that amount of money and then went and did it. And it was a just in time kind of a thing. And most of us would never want to live that way. But for him, he was getting exactly what he wanted in life. And he said, at some point I'll settle down and I'll have a more traditional life and a more traditional job. But he's like, I'm seeing the world. And he was super, super happy. And to me, that is the ideal of success, right? You're living the life you want to live.
And I think that's the other half, that people think you have to live the hobo lifestyle to do what you want. You can have money and the lifestyle you want.
Well, that's exactly. And then when I tell that story, everybody's like, well, you're telling me that I'm supposed to like get rid of everything and get a backpack and never shower? I'm like, no, yours might be a mansion and a Bentley. Like it could be completely the opposite of his life, but it has to be authentic to you. That's authentic to him right now. And it may not always be authentic to him, but it is now. And what is your authentic life? And understanding what is just, I want that mansion because it's the car we talked about earlier, right? It's because I made it. Well, I don't really want the car. I just want people to think I made it, And so it's what is authentic to you, and then building that earning stream, that freedom, the things that you need in order to have that life. His is very much on one extreme. There are a lot of people on other extremes. But if you really truly want, I have a friend who has a huge like collectibles. He has Iron Man costumes and he likes movie memorabilia, and he's got 3 cars and and a big huge house. But that's important to him. They're not just trappings. The other one is Jay Leno. Everybody Jay Leno has hundreds of cars, right? But it's not just a collection for him. He works on them, the acquisition of it, the driving of it. It's a lifestyle for him. It's not just things he has because it means he was successful.
And you got to figure it out for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where a lot of people struggle. They don't want to think. They just want to buy somebody else's dream and live that. And then they wonder why.
Well, it goes back to what we were talking about before. At 17 years old, your guidance counselor says, what do you want to be? And then your parents chime in, and then your pastor chimes in, and everybody in your life chimes in on this. And you pick a road when you're 17, 18 years old, and then you just get the checklist. Here's what you have to do in order to fulfill that. And then everybody does it. And somewhere along their life, they have what I said was the topic cocking heads moment, where they go, how did I get here? because this isn't really me. This isn't what I wanted. This is not my beautiful house. It's not my beautiful wife, as he says in the song, right? And I'm not advocating divorce, and I'm not. But if it's not truly you, if you followed this career and you hate it, you're a lawyer, a doctor, or an accountant, or whatever, and you hate it. Okay, it's time to start thinking, well, how do I recraft my life? And most people then jump into entrepreneurship. And as we talked about that earlier, not everybody's cut out for that.
No, they're not cut out for it. Most businesses fail.
Yep.
And part of it is, I think everyone thinks, oh, I've got a great idea. Here's the reality. Nobody cares. You have to have a solution that solves everybody else's problem that they are willing to pay for. So I learned that, right? I'm a money guy. I can teach anyone how to be a millionaire. The problem is they're only willing to pay for it if I can show them how to be a millionaire this weekend. If I give them a 10-year plan to become a millionaire, they're like, no, thank you. We're not paying for that. And yet that's how people become wealthy. 10-year plan. The same thing is true of business. Like, you have to have something that provides value to the other person that they are willing to pay for. So there's a lot of stuff people go, oh, that's wonderful. That's nice. I like it. But are they willing to pay for it? And are enough people willing to pay for it? Your mother might be, but like, what about the public that doesn't know you?
Well, and in my world, are enough people willing to pay for it that you have the earning stream to allow you to have the life you want. Because you don't have to be a billionaire. You just have to make enough, like, to go back to the hobo guy, right? You just have to make enough money to support the life you want.
And I think most people think the life they want costs a lot more than it actually does. When you strip away all the useless stuff, you can have the life you want without a ton of money. That was one of the big things that came up in Tony Robbins' Money Master the Game. One of his opening points was most people have no clue how much they really need to live the life they want. And it's usually not anywhere near as expensive as they think it is.
Yeah, and it's also in the book To Die With Zero. I can't think of the guy that wrote that book, but
I know what book you're talking about.
Yeah,
I'm not a fan of him because I don't want to have my last days with no money.
No, that's what he's saying.
I know, but he is enjoy life. I get it.
Is that you earn $1 more than all of the things you want in life, the experiences you want, the money you want to give to charity, the money you want to give to your kids. He's like, the toughest part about it is we don't know what day we're dying on.
No.
And he said, you can't die with actually zero. He's like, that would, you'd have to know exactly what date you're dying on. But the theory behind it is that you're trading your time and energy for stuff. And if you're trading it for more money than you need to do all of the things you want to do in life, you're actually wasting your time and energy. And to go back to what you said, a lot of the stuff, I saw a post recently that said that all of those things around your house that you're not using, that's time and energy that you shouldn't have spent.
And that is very true, right? I think people spend a lot of time and energy on stuff they really don't want, need, or desire. They got excited by it, and it just wasn't all that, and that's a shame.
Or something you can rent, to go back to your beach house when you're walking the beach. How much time and energy was spent to have that building that's empty right now?
Well, and because I have real estate, I also realize that you have to take care of it. And that takes time and energy. Whereas when I rent it, I show up and then I leave. And then it's someone else's problem.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't have to fuss with it. And I also don't want to go to the same house over and over again. So I want a little variety. I know that too. Yeah. And so it's.
But some people want to go to the same exact place every time.
They do. That's their choice.
Some clients that they love the cabin in Maine, and they go every year and they do the exact same thing, and they eat at the same restaurant on Monday, and they go to the little general store on Tuesday, and and that's their life, and that's cool too. Like
for
that's
them,
the life you want. build that life for you. Let's get you to be able to buy that cabin if that's what if you want to keep going back there or whatever. For other people, it's like, shoot me now. Like, I don't want them to live to say it's Groundhog Day. I don't want to say vacation over and over again.
I'm with them. It's Groundhog Day. Thank you, but no thank you.
Like, I would much rather go to a whole bunch of different places. And it doesn't even have to be far. It's just a different vacation. Like, I'll go 3 towns over for vacation if it's something new and novel, right?
It is so true. So let's change gears a little bit. We actually met at an event, Steve D. Sims. Steve was on the podcast about, what was his book? Go for Stupid, right?
Go for Stupid, yeah.
Stupid.
That actually was an important thing in my life, actually, reading that book and joining his community and meeting people like you.
And I think that's the thing. You've got to find places where you meet people who are not necessarily going the same direction as you, but have the same underlying themes that can help you find your way forward. I know for me, we were only together for a weekend and just a lot of learning, seeing things differently. It helped me change the way I'm doing things. So definitely was a great weekend. And I got to meet a lot of cool people too, which was really nice. And some of you have all come on the podcast as well. So that was also super cool.
Yeah. It's a great way to build a community of people you can connect with, to bounce ideas off of. Coming out of that event, like some of the ways I offer services and stuff, I was struggling with some delivery and stuff. And I had great conversation afterwards with a lot of people like Neil Moore and Sylvania and a lot of other people that were there that weekend. And it's just, it's great to have a community of people that you can, help them, they help you while you're there, or maybe staying connected with, to be on each other's podcasts, that kind of stuff. Community is important, and you need a new blood in your community or your network every once in a while. And that was why I read Steve's book, and he sent me an email soon after that because I used the QR code, and he offered it for me to go to New Orleans last fall, and not this one that just happened, but the one before. And I was like, I'm in, and I met a whole bunch of really cool people, and I keep going to his stuff, and yeah.
It's time to learn the secrets of life. What's your secret to living an abundant life?
To understand what you want and do what truly matters to you.
And that's literally all it's about. But you got to figure out what you want. That's the hard part.
That's the hard part. But that's the key. If you don't know what you want, you can't live that life.
What did you learn later in life that you wish you would have learned sooner?
That blend balance thing we've been talking about for most of this thing. If I had known that a long time ago, I would have counterbalanced much better.
We call it harmony. Make your
blend.
Music, right? Make the music you want to listen to.
I might steal that one from you. It goes well with my drum beat.
I stole it from someone else, so have at it. If you were to give an 18-year-old one specific piece of wisdom, what would it be?
Don't listen to anyone. Do what feels good to you.
I think that is the one piece of advice they will listen to. Not to listen to anyone. They don't want to do that anyway.
But they end up doing it. Like at some point, we all succumb and we listen to, you've got to march to this beat of this drum, and we pick the band we're marching to, and then it's not our own drum beat, it's somebody else's drum beat.
So true. If people would like to learn more about you or get help for themselves, where do they find you?
thefocusturbine.com.
And we'll put that in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us, Dave.
Thanks for having me.
So are you clear? Your dreams, your direction, are you moving toward them? Or is it something for tomorrow? A tomorrow that never comes? The choice is yours. If you need help, find the people who can help you get on track. It's not as hard as you think, but you got to have clarity and say, hey, let's do this and let's move it forward. By the way, if you know someone who might appreciate this episode, would you do me a favor and would you share it with them? I'd appreciate that. Next week, we are going to talk about embodiment, how to feel, heal, and transform your life through movements. It's a wonderful conversation. Thanks for listening. Have an abundant week.